Welcome back everyone to the Italian Film Buff podcast. Is the new Super Mario Galaxy movie good? Is it worth? Or is it just a bunch of scenes stitched together? And are we entitled, or at least can we enjoy a movie that it's just silly and pointless and there's no narrative whatsoever? Well, let's talk about this, but let's talk about video game adaptation with the new project for Metal Gear Solid, the movie, or Metal Gear Solid, and whatever, and the new Resident Evil by Zach Cregger. Welcome back to the Italian Film Buff podcast. How are you doing? I decided to make this introduction completely bonkers, just for the sake of it. But anyway, I'm late. I'm sorry. But anyway, here I am. I want to talk about Super Mario Galaxy, but I decided to encapsulate in this episode a couple of considerations about the new Metal Gear Solid movie, the Resident Evil by Zach Cregger, because I want to talk a little bit about writing for movies and writing for video games, because there are some stuff that are getting lost in translation, but we should take in consideration a broader discussion. But anyway, I have my coffee. I hope you have one as well, or you are enjoying a nice stroll in the park, or maybe you are at the gym working out. I don't know. Some people tell me in my Italian podcast, I listen to you while I'm training at the gym, and I envy you. I will never be able to do that, because gym for me is like sports in general. To me, it's like transcendental meditation. I'm in the zone, I'm in the moment, and I have music, but it's there. I'm really I'm spacing out when I'm training. So I don't know how you do that, but if it works, if I'm keeping you company, happy to do so. So push, keep going, don't give up. Come on! Anyway, let's take this. So, I watched the new Super Mario movie. I went to the cinema with my son the 1st of April when it was released, so 2 weeks ago. And I enjoyed the movie. We enjoyed the movie. He had popcorn, and it was very fun for him to have popcorn at 10 a.m. in the morning. But anyway, he really enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the movie, but the movie has some problems, some issues. So let's start from this. Let's talk about this properly. The movie has the same, basically, good sides that has the previous movie, and the same problem that had the previous movie. And let's start from the good stuff. I love the cast. I think he's perfect. I love Charlie Day. I love Chris Pratt as Mario. I love the new entry in the cast, Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach. I love her. I love Brie Larson as I don't remember the name now, but anyway, I don't remember the other princess name. I have a blank in this moment. Rosalina, yes, I'm convincing myself that the name is Rosalina in this very moment. I don't want to check. The Super Mario Galaxy movie cast. I play Super Mario, for the love of God. Seriously. Rosalina, correct. Brie Larson, I love that. She's a big fan of Nintendo. She's a big fan of Mario games, and I'm so happy when someone that is a fan and has a job in the industry can get to be part of those projects. So you could tell that she was very invested in doing the job properly, and I'm very happy that she did that. I love Brie Larson in general. I believe she's amazing. But anyway, let's go beyond this point. I believe the cast works. I believe Illumination, thanks to an infinite numbers of years that Nintendo spent designing the world of Super Mario, had an easy life in a way to adapt, to bring on screen this amazing design, colorful and playful, that the world of Super Mario has. And they did a great job, because they could have done something very lazy, but if we speak about also illumination, using lights, I mean, the technique used to make this movie, it's not cheap at all. It's a very good technique. Visually speaking, the movie, it's amazing. It's fantastic. And I'm gonna mention that in that scene where there is Fox McCloud from Star Fox, and the voice is from Glenn Powell, it's amazing. He says his backstories, and the backstory, the animation style of the backstory is fantastic. I love it. And if it was sort of an advertisement to say to the audience, well, if you like Star Fox, we can do a movie like this. Oh, please do it. If you can make a space opera in the world of Star Fox and you're gonna build a good movie, please do it. With that style of animation would be amazing. So fantastic. I'm on board. The movie, it's visually striking, as I was saying. It's fantastic. And for the fans of Super Mario, it's like a party, because you have many references. It's a fan service galore. It's everywhere, and you have small tunes, a piece of audio, references visually, and visual references, sound references, everything. It's there, and it's fantastic. But this is where the sun rise and set for the good side of the Super Mario Galaxy movie. That's it. There is nothing more to it. Because on the other hand, the argument that, oh, it's a Super Mario movie, it's an easy story, it's for kids, doesn't hold up. I'm sorry. For the first movie, I kind of forgive the fact that the story was very simple, because the story in the first movie, it's very simple, but you gotta introduce Super Mario somehow, somewhat. It's a completely bonkers kind of universe, and you can't close your eyes. You say, okay, that's fine, the writing is whatever it is, it's very simple. And even the main, let's say, storyline with the basic morality of Mario, that even if he is a small guy and a guy of arrogant and big guy and bully, he's never giving up. He's never giving up with the bully of his neighborhood that is bullying him and his brother. He never gave up when his brother was little and other kids were bullying him, and he's not giving up in front of Bowser, that it's much bigger and dangerous that he is. And even if that narrative was brought to the audience in the most lazy and ridiculous way possible, because they don't even close it properly, speaking of writing, of whatever happened to screen, it just there and they resolve itself in a very silly way, and there is no morality for whoever is watching, you go like, fine, I can cut them a slack, because this is the first movie, and because they managed to create something amazing, like with Jack Black as Bowser singing Peaches, 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 and it was great, because they took something that it's very peculiar of Jack Black and they use it properly inside the Super Mario movie. It's not like what they usually do. They take something that like Jack Black can sing and dance, and they just push it in the movie just to use Jack Black talent, but they don't build something inside the movie to utilize his talent in a way that makes sense and that makes sense inside the movie. But with the Super Mario movie, they did it great. But anyway, going back to the start, I forgave the first movie for his lack of narrative, build up, the way it's basically movie it's just a wild ride to defeat Bowser, and there is no narrative, but it's fine. It was the first movie, was introducing the character and the world, and I was like, in the second movie, maybe since they saw that this movie paid off and worked, I was naive enough to think, okay, maybe for the second movie they will be, I won't say bold, but just they will do the work and build up a narrative. And they didn't. And allow me to build up my argument. So, first things first, I don't want to hear stuff like it's for kids. I have a kid. Kids are not stupid. They understand everything and they get everything. They get even complex narrative. And complex narrative, I'm not saying The Matrix. Complex narrative, something like a basic 3-act structure with conflict between the character and basic morality like good and evil, friendship, those kind of stuff. They get it. They are not stupid. Bluey show us time and time again how you can build a proper narrative with a proper structure and with tool of storytelling that for an 8-minute show are even way above what an 8-minute show usually does. But they do it and the kids love it. And plus, the kid, even if they don't get it right away, but anyway, they will absorb those storyline and morality. And so doesn't matter if they don't get it right away. They will, in time, process those information and their morality will be shaped thanks to those movies and stories. So the thing, it's just for kids doesn't mean that they're stupid and doesn't mean that the storytelling has to be for idiot. They are not idiot. If they turn out to be idiot, it was your fault because you feed stupid stuff to your kid and you never gave him enough challenging, stimulating form of art or any form of challenges in order to develop their intelligence. But they are, by design, by default, as soon as they came out of the baby factory, they are designed to be smart and very receptive to whatever information they receive. So that is not an argument, that is just plain stupid. The second thing, oh, but it's just Super Mario. Okay. There is a difference between storytelling in video games and storytelling in movies. I'm not gonna go in details, but there is a huge difference. So when I play Super Mario, I play Super Mario Bros. 3D World or even something like Paper Mario, the Origami King, or the Thousand Years Doors, those kind of or Super Mario Odyssey, in those kind of games, because this is something specific for games like Super Mario. When I have a game mechanic where the gameplay and what the players do inside the video game when he plays, his interactivity, his interaction with the world and stuff like that, makes basically 90% of the game, because it's pure gameplay and the pure joy of living in the world of Super Mario and pick up all the challenges that the game feed the user or the audience with, whatever you want to call it. When you have a game built to be like that, and this is the case of Super Mario, your narrative, your storytelling, it's almost an obstacle. So you have to keep it as easy and as linear and basic as you can, because otherwise it's gonna kind of break the balance between having a story that works and having the gameplay that is so wide and full of fantastic idea and stimulations and stuff you can do, and that has its own kind of set of rules, that the narrative will break that balance if you build a too much, let's say, ordinary kind of an ordinary narrative. Take for example Super Mario 64, for whoever is listening that has played video game. If you take a game like Mario 64 for Nintendo 64, or Super Mario Odyssey, or Super Mario 3D World, if you build a narrative, doesn't make any sense that they keep jumping inside paintings to have levels and stuff like that. The kind of suspension of disbelief that you have in video game, due to the kind of balance that you have between narrative and game, you have to manage that. And in a game like Super Mario, you can't build a very complex narrative structure when you have that kind of gameplay by design. It's not like The Last of Us. It's not like, Metal Gear Solid, Batman Arkham, or even Resident Evil, that had its own way of build story and tell a story and build storytelling and stuff like that based on the gameplay. So in Super Mario, you have a very silly basic story. Bowser kidnapped the princess, period. Save the princess, period. A bunch of levels to go through, that the whole point is having fun beating the levels, completing the levels in the best way possible, in the least time possible, and having fun with the different power that Mario can unlock in each stage, and those kind of stuff. The kind of gameplay loop, as we call it in video game, that will produce fun, and the whole idea of engagement and fun is based on the gameplay, not because, oh my god, Mario has to save Peach. Who the fuck cares? Honestly. Or even every sort of story, even a game like Luigi's Mansion, where Luigi is this sort of Ghostbusters. It's a Ghostbusters, basically. The gameplay is so funny. The kind of Nintendo gameplay that we have in those games is so funny, so hilarious, sometimes ridiculous, over the top, in a silly, nice way. In fact, for years I went around saying, guys, if you're depressed, play a Super Mario game. You're gonna feel not fine, but better. Still talk with a with a professional, somebody that can help you, but if you do that, I guarantee you're gonna feel better, because it's a game that works. It leads up your spirit, and it's bonkers, and it's so funny. And I love every Mario game ever made because they're like that. And as I was saying, when you play Luigi's Mansion, they made 3 games in the Luigi's Mansion saga. The gameplay, it's what brings you there, not the fact that everyone suddenly, like in the last one, everyone get kidnapped by those ghosts, and they are trapped by those ghosts. The storyline, it's always the same. A villain takes someone and you gotta save them because you are the only one. And in that case, Luigi's is the only one. It is super scary by everything, and the fact that Luigi, that is super scary, is the one that needs to save everyone, it's very hilarious, and it's part of the charm. But the storyline basically doesn't exist. It's just a stupid reason to push through the gameplay, and we are fine with that because it's the beauty of those games. But when you are in a movie theater, or you are in a theater, or you are reading a book, you need storytelling, because that's the entertainment form that you are engaging with. And doesn't matter if it has fan service because it comes from another IP, an existing IP, doesn't matter. I still need a story, because that's what I'm trying to watch. And the Super Mario Galaxy movie has no storytelling whatsoever, because it's like Bowser Jr. is coming to rescue his father and want to set him free, and then a mess happened. They took Rosalina because they need Rosalina for that weapon and stuff like that. It's very Star Wars like the narrative. But anyway, like the latest Star Wars, the like of a Death Star. They're building basically a Death Star. But anyway, it's the same thing. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing, and they just chase Bowser Jr. and they want just to help Peach and Rosalina, and that's it. But as for the first movie, the biggest disappointment was that it's just a bunch of event stitched together. The way they found Yoshi is clearly the character that lights up this movie, but it's not good enough. I mean, there is no conflict, there is no challenge, there is no even three-arc structure in this movie. It's just literally a bunch of set pieces stitched together. Even the way they introduce Fox McCloud from Star Fox, you know what it is? That advertisement. That is advertisement. The reason why is there, they give a quick exposition, and the exposition is so annoying for the way it is. Oh, it's from another universe. Oh, that's it. He has to go home, and then he goes home because yes. And I mean, there is a reason, but it's so bonkers. It's so okay. That's all good. Bye. And he goes. But anyway, it's basically advertisement for Star Fox Return, probably in the video games and probably with a movie. It's marketing. It's soulless. And also, it's very disappointing because when you see this character has no character. I mean, he has no charisma. He's not charming. Who is supposed to be the kind of a Han Solo kind of character? I'm speaking for the audience that has no knowledge of the character whatsoever, and they're trying to appeal to a new audience, not just people who already know Super Mario, stuff like that. This thing that millennial thinks that they're always the main character of the words, and this thing that the audience thinks that stuff they're talking just to them and them alone, but no, they're talking to a bigger audience, those kind of movie and projects. But anyway, Fox McCloud, it's basically non-existing as a character. He's there. And when I saw those pirate ship in space outside Bowser Jr. planet, my imagination started to run wild because I played Mario Galaxy, not the second, the first one. I played it. And I was like, maybe because there is Fox McCloud, they're going to have this battle in space. Maybe they're going to give other spaceship to Mario and Luigi. Like in the first movie, they had the car. Here, they're going to have the spaceship. But it's going to have a huge battle in space. Nothing happened. The part with Fox McCloud was the most boring, lazy part of the movie. It had no imagination and engagement whatsoever. It was plain lazy. And even the part of Mario in space, another idea. Okay, let's ditch the idea of the battle in space with different spaceship. Okay, let's have the movie is called Super Mario Galaxy, for the love of God. Let's have Mario engage with those pirate ship in space, so jumping from one another, using powers and destroy them and punching everyone. At least build a set piece that was nice. Instead, what set pieces they built? The same from the previous movie, with him and Peach going through the different traps set up by Bowser and Bowser Jr. in that way that it resembled the game. And it was annoying, because if you wanted to resemble a game, at least resemble a Super Mario Galaxy game. So use the space, the fact that you are in space, for the love of God, is the title of the movie. At least be inventive and on that thing because it's the core of the film. Instead, no, we didn't have that as well. And plus, I mean, for the love of God, the whole of movie, it's going from set pieces to set pieces to set pieces. And the movie started with two teams. Peach feeling alone because, I mean, Peach has no family. There is that moment that was so great of Peach being sad because she's celebrating a birthday, but it's not actually her birthday. She doesn't know when it actually is. It's the day they found her, the mushroom found her, but it's not actually the day of her birthday. So she's kind of sad because there is a big blank in her past and she doesn't know nothing. She doesn't know where she comes from. She has family. She doesn't know anything. And it's a good point to start something that can give meaning to the story. And as well, the idea that Mario is falling in love, or at least he already fell in love with Peach. There is just Luigi teasing him about that, but it was a theme that was interesting. And this thing that she needs to find her family could be a struggle between their relationship, because he would like to be in love with her, but he can't be the meaning of her life. Even for a female audience, I believe this could have been a great theme. So the idea of saying, okay, your meaning in life, if you feel you're missing something, your answer is not love. Your answer, there is a fly. Oh my God. What happened? Where is this come from? Sorry about that. But I think it's from a window. I open a window and Ireland is so green. But anyway, decided to come inside. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for annoying me. But anyway, what I was saying, love is not supposed to be the answer. If you want to understand yourself and find who you are, it can't be a romantic relationship. It could have been an interesting theme, that one, or just the idea of finding your family and finding who you are, and maybe finding Rosalina and everything, their power together when they join the power, the fact that they're together and there is all that energy. They could have been theme very interesting, but exactly as the first movie, they dropped the ball. There is no development to those themes, and the story is not built around those themes. And to have the idea that maybe Super Mario this time around, as previously was fighting for a brotherly love for his brother to protect him, this time around is fighting for a romantic love because he loves Peach and he cares about her and he wants her to find her family. So he understands that she wants to find family before maybe being in love with someone, and he loves her so much that he agreed to help her because he genuinely loves her. That would have been a great opportunity to tell a great story and to send a nice message about love, family, and purpose, and even with something that is so bonkers and funny like Super Mario. But it's just at the beginning, and at the end, it's just the movie ends, literally. They defeat the bad guys, she finds Rosalina, they hug, they go to the castle, they rebuild the castle, and Super Mario flies, and that's it. It's terrible. It's truly terrible. And guys, it's not good enough. I'm sorry. I don't agree with this thing. Oh, but it's a simple Super Mario. Doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter, because I mean, when I was a kid, if I was watching even Robin Hood, the Disney one with the fox and everything, he had morality, but he had a story. It was a 3-arc structure, simple story, but still there was a story. there was a character, where there was about good and evil and bravery and heroism. And there were so many subtexts, like, for example, when Robin Hood, he decided willingly, even if he knows it's a trap, but he decided to go to the archery tournament dressed as a I don't remember what animal was. I mean, I remember the animal, but I don't remember in English how it's called. But anyway, goes there, he pretends to be someone else, and for the whole time he kind of gives suggestion. He started to flirt with Princess Marian because he wants to let her know that he's Robin Hood, even in front of the prince, even if it's dangerous. But he's facing something dangerous boldly and with a smile on his face, and it's a great, something very great to teach to kids. And it's something very bold. It's something that he's gonna pay, but at the end he's gonna win because heroism, friendship, and all the stuff. People are gonna to help him. And anyway, there are themes and there is a story. The fact that we accept that the movie has no story whatsoever, it's just a bunch of set pieces stitched together with no storytelling, with no fantasy, with no way to build even slightly a character, it's very sad. Means that we can go to the movies and put a TikTok feed in a movie theater and for 2 hours, and people will say, "Oh, that's a movie." That's what it means. Seriously, have an incoherent flow of things stitched together, and it's gonna be fine. Because well, I enjoy it. No. And so the movie was terrible under this aspect, and this is a big aspect. And you know what? I know, I'm 100% sure that most of the people that defended the movie, they don't remember nothing about the movie. And this conversation, you can do it only offline. Because online people use Google and use stuff. But if you take a person on the street and you go like, "You watched the Super Mario movie?" "Oh yes, I went 2 weeks ago." What do you remember about it? A line, something? Most likely they will remember jack shit about it. Because it's a very forgettable movie. Because the final scene, the final nail in the coffin in this movie was that in the previous movie we had peaches, na 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 na. We had that. In this movie, there is nothing like that. What I mean is that they didn't need to do another song. But this movie is so forgettable that there's nothing that will be remembered. Nothing. Zero. It's empty. Empty space. And it's super sad. There is nothing. I'm almost 40, but I still remember the song from that Robin Hood movie. And sometimes when I wash the dishes or I'm doing chores around the house, I start to sing those songs. And I'm not a big Disney fan. I'm not like, Disney, I love it. No, not that kind of person. But still, it's stuck in my head. And I don't mean, again, that you need songs in the movie. But you need something that you need to remember. Something that will push you to say, "Oh, I really want to watch that movie again." But instead, this movie, as much as the probably more than the previous, and as many other movies, it's just something that you consume and that's it. I don't think there is anybody that is very hyped and will say, "Oh, I dig this. I want the Blu-ray and I want to watch it every time I'm sad. I'm gonna put the Super Mario Galaxy movie, because it has nothing. And it's super sad. And I'm not happy to say this, because as I stated multiple times, and as I show talking about Super Mario, I love Super Mario. I grew up with those video games, and I still play them every time there is a new game. I want to play it because I love Super Mario, and I love this world, and I love the style visually, how the iconography of Super Mario is so powerful, but the sounds effect, the themes. There are themes from Super Mario Bros. 3D World, Super Mario 3D World, that sometimes I'm, again, walking around, stuff like that, and I find myself singing those tunes. It's so iconic, and I'm very sad that for this sequel, a movie that was very safe to make, very safe, because you knew that was going to be a smash hit. It's not like the case you go like, oh, the first movie went fine, so we're doing a second, but it could go a little bit better or maybe worse. No, you knew that this movie was going to be a smash hit. But anyway, they decided to put as little effort as possible, played not safe, super safe, and just create a movie that it's like, I don't know, a laser for a cat on the ground. You know, when you have those laser pointer and you show it to a cat and the cat goes crazy because you want to catch it. It's the same thing, but for human beings. It's the exact same thing. And it's very disappointing, because when you have a smash success as the previous movie, you have the chance to be bold. It's the moment where you have to be bold. And you have to be bold with storytelling, you have to be bold with building a world that it's way beyond what you expect, what the audience expect to see. Instead, they made this laser pointer for human beings, and it's very sad. But moving on, those are my thoughts about the Super Mario Galaxy movie. But I want to talk about a little bit about Resident Evil, the new movie by Zach Cregger, and I want to talk about the Metal Gear Solid movie, because they said that there's going to be a new Metal Gear Solid movie. So let's start from there. Because I think there are a couple of things that I want to say, and because I'm really worried about this. In a healthy way. It's not like, oh my god, but in a healthy way. So let's talk a little bit. And so news is that finally Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein, the horror duo behind Final Destination Bloodline, that I gotta be honest, I haven't watched because I'm not into Final Destination whatsoever. I find it boring, so I wasn't drive to watch it. But a lot of people told, it's a good movie, it's a solid, so I will watch it at some point. But anyway, moving on, they basically were hired to make the adaptation of a Metal Gear Solid movie at Sony's Columbia. And I'm kind of very skeptical and very worried, because the thing is that this is the thing, okay? The movie previously was for many years Jordan Vogt Roberts, that was the director of Kong Skull Island. Okay, he was a big fan of Metal Gear Solid. He was in touch with Kojima. They started to write stuff together. He started to write the narrative, and he started to write the script that he wanted to make it good. He wasn't willing to compromise the final result, but that thing was on going back and forth for many years, and then eventually I think it died. And now we have this new duo of filmmaker working on a new adaptation. and they want to actually make it. Because Kojima has already a deal with A24 for Death Stranding, with Michael Sarnowski, if I remember correctly. I love that guy. He made Big. It's an amazing movie. I'm looking forward for the new Robin Hood movie that is making. Seems very interesting. But anyway, he seems perfect for Death Stranding, that it's a new story and stuff like that. But anyway, moving on. They decided probably, okay, we gotta cut this deal because this is the moment. But I mean, during those years, I started to process this. Death Stranding, it's a very cinematic experience, but on a narrative level, I think for the way Hideo Kojima wrote the storytelling of Death Stranding, it makes sense that this story can be adapted into a movie more easily. Because the writing per se, it's like The Last of Us, meaning it's closer to way we tell story in movies. I said closer, not the same, because of course there are due differences because there are two different media. But for example, in Death Stranding, the story is a big part of the lore. There are emails and stuff like that, but the majority of the story and the lore, it goes through the cinematic, the cutscene, the dialogue, the interaction, when you have the plot point and you reach specific plot point, and the interaction between the characters. And since there is an anime adaptation in the works, or probably it's gonna come out, I think this year or next year, I don't remember, on Netflix, if I remember correctly. But anyway, there is an animation adaptation in the works that is as well a new story and stuff like that. Death Stranding, the world is so wide that you can't basically build the story in the world of Death Stranding and build it in a way that makes sense and in a way that works cinematically. Because even the kind of story, mood of the world of Death Stranding is that sort of sci-fi, surreal kind of horror, or kind of, it's something Death Stranding in my head is something that blend Terrence Malick, blends kind of classic kind of monster movies, The Road. It blends different kind of stuff together, but it's something that you can actually translate into other media. It can be a book, it can be a movie, it can be a TV show, it can be an anime. You can translate it because the way it's written, it's more, and the way the story is built, more suitable to be adapted to those media easily. But this is not the case for Metal Gear Solid. Mostly for the first Metal Gear Solid, but as well as probably the third one is the one that can be easily adapted into a movie. But the first two, even the fourth, but particularly the first Metal Gear, I think it's very difficult to be adapted into a movie. Would make more sense, to be honest, to build a TV show, a small TV show with like 6 episodes or stuff like that. This is why a big part of the storytelling, and I think this happened also because of the limit of the technology, a big chunk of the storytelling it comes through the codec dialogue. There are endless minutes of codec dialogue that basically convey story. I don't want to spoil anything for people who hasn't played Metal Gear Solid, or people who doesn't know much about that, but many characters with important plot point in the story, those plot point, they come through the communication via the codec. And the codec, for whoever is listening and they don't know what it is a sort of radio. Okay, is a sort of radio. Okay, it's not properly a radio because it works with, you have images and sound, sort of video radio communication. I'll put it like that just for the sake of understanding what I'm talking about, and then we move forward. But anyway, many plot points are told through that device. And it's a storytelling device as well that works in a video game and makes sense in a video game. You can translate those in a movie. Of course you can. In some part you can build flashback or backstories. But I do believe that the time and the effort that requires those backstory in a visual media to exist, it's considerably bigger, more important than what you can convey through a movie. Because a movie, I mean, let's suppose they make an epic movie, an epic story, like Dune, 3 hours long movie. That would make any sense. I mean, we stay in the movie theater almost for 3 hours for Avengers Endgames. We can do that for a Metal Gear Solid movie. I won't be happy about it. We stay 3 hours and almost a half for the last Avatar movie that it's nonsense. There is no storytelling. There are 2 plot points that are barely different from the previous movie, and they move a little bit the story and the character, and they get exploring like 2 20-second scene, and that's it, and the rest of the movie is the same as the previous. There is my god, the storytelling of that movie, it's ridiculous. But anyway, we can stay in a movie theater for, I don't know, 2 hours and a half, 3 hours for Metal Gear Solid. We can do that potentially. And I think that with a very good screenwriter, you can achieve the result. Because the problem is that Metal Gear Solid conveys so many interesting and compelling ideas and metaphor about life, and about, because the first movie, it's all based on genes and the idea of passed on genes to the new generation, and if we are doomed by our genes to make again and again the same mistakes. It's a movie about forgiveness, a movie about revenge. It's a movie that is based a lot from Escape from New York. And Kojima was a big fan of it. But anyway, it's a movie, it's a story that was based on Escape from New York. But anyway, there are many things that you can convey, but I think they will work better in a TV show, limited TV series. Because there are so many things. A codec dialogue with a character explaining why they have took a specific action that is a plot twist or a revelation in the story inside the movie, in the video game takes, I don't know, a couple of minutes of dialogue. In the movie, it can be translated to a bigger story visually, because otherwise, if you do the same thing that they do in the game, so you make a huge dialogue with exposition, it's gonna be boring, it's gonna be annoying. Maybe for some people it will be genius, but I think it's gonna be lazy, and I don't think we will translate properly. So I think the translation is possible into a movie, but it's very hard to tackle. I think this movie has to work first with a very solid script, and second with a very solid mise-en-scene and direction of the action scene, the design of Shadow Moses, the you have to pick the right Solid Snake, you have to pick the right Meryl, you have to pick the right liquid. But anyway, it's a project that it's very difficult to realize well, and I think it's a project that it's very easy to screw up. Seriously, I think that it's easier to screw up a Metal Gear Solid adaptation than succeed in doing one properly. That's what I think. I think this is the case. And I think it's gonna be a big challenge. And I think they picked those two directors for two reasons. First reason, they just made a hit movie and they think that they will. It's a good thought out, actually, on paper. They think they will convince the audience to go to the movie theater just because, hey, do you remember Final Destination, what it was, Bloodline, that you love so much? Those guys are adapting Metal Gear Solid, one of the most epic and celebrated story in the history of video game. Wow, I want to watch it, because the name of Jordan Vogt Roberts was like, who's that guy? That is not a good reason, but for pushing the movie, it makes sense. The second reason, I think that because they were cheap. It's not like you gotta hire Steven Spielberg. It's not like you are hiring, I don't know, Denis Villeneuve. Also because Denis Villeneuve, whatever he's going to adapt, is gonna take artistic choices and is gonna demand an amazing DOP, an amazing set dresser, an amazing set designer. Is gonna ask for the best of the best, and that's gonna cost. And sorry if I'm very blunt on this, but I think that they want to make this, but trying to keep the cost very low. And that's how you do it. Those are my thoughts. Maybe I'm too cynic, but I think this is the course of action that they are taking. That's what I thought. I want to watch it, of course. Of course, if they actually manage to produce this project that has been in what in gaming is called development hell, so in production hell for many years, we can say, movies, I'm gonna watch it, definitely. But I'm gonna suggest to all the Metal Gear fan out there to just not get too excited. Keep very low your expectation, because I think adapt this story, it's very difficult and it's gonna be a bitch. And keep your expectation low and you're not going to be disappointed. But moving on, let's talk about the Resident Evil movie by Zach Cregger, because at the CinemaCon they show a little bit of something, a little bit of footage, a bit of something about this new movie, okay? And people kind of lost it, even if we haven't seen anything. But basically, I'm gonna explain why people lost it, because to me it's very ridiculous. And we're gonna talk a little bit about writing and gaming as well for this one, and I'm gonna give you a small outline of what is the project and what's going on. So let's start from here. I'm gonna read this from Deadline, that is reporting, even if it's full of advertisement, for the love of God. During its CinemaCon presentation on Monday night, Sony offered the first look at the new Resident Evil film from Weapons and Barbarian helmer Zach Cregger. I love this guy, and I love both Weapons and Barbarian. Great guy. A trailer played for the room only suggests that this will be a compelling watch for fans of Cregger's past work. It introduces Austin Abrams, a young man trudging through a snowy night and end up to a dark, empty house. He had a problem on the road, he says, and wants to use the phone. Calling his girlfriend, he says some things have happened and he is in a seriously fucked up situation and we might not get to talk to each other again. We don't see exactly what's happening, but get a glimpse at different creatures and bodies falling bloody in the snow from a great height. In Cregger's Resident Evil, Abrams plays Brian, a medical courier who unwittingly finds himself in a non-stop race for survival as one fateful, horrifying night collapses around him in chaos. So they describe this movie as a sort of horror Mad Max. So as soon as the events start and the horror kickstart, we're gonna follow this guy for an hour and a half trying to survive, and I can dig that. I think it works. The new film marks the latest big screen adaptation of Resident Evil, and blah yada yada yada. In an appearance tonight in Las Vegas, Craig said the film is a big scary ride. He hoped it will be true to the spirit of the games. He shared that he spent the last couple of decades playing a shitload of Resident Evil, natural cinematic games with their atmosphere, pacing, resources, management and dread. In comparison to his past film, he said, his take on Resident Evil, we have no narrative acrobatics, time jumps or disorienting chapter things. Viewers will be locked in with a protagonist on a footy journey through a world hell-bent on destroying them. So this is the movie. And last time I checked, I don't know if this is still the case, the movie, it's basically based on the Resident Evil lore, but it is connected to the Resident Evil lore, but doesn't take place. It's not a direct adaptation of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever. It's connected, but it's not there. So as far as we know, most likely this movie take place probably during an outbreak, maybe during the outbreak of Resident Evil 2 and 3, because as you notice, they say that he needs to use the phone in a house. So why the fuck that he doesn't have a cell phone? You can say, well, maybe there is no reception or stuff like that. I think most likely takes place in the 90s. That's my speculation. Probably take place in 1998 during the Raccoon City outbreak. It's connected to that most likely. But it talks about snow and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. We will find out. Whatever it is and whatever it will be connected to a specific chapter or whatever. But anyway, my thoughts on this. I have seen so many people online complain by the fact that it's not a direct adaptation of the Resident Evil franchise. Because, it would be sick. It would be sick in a sense that you're gonna get sick for how bonkers would be that adaptation. As a Resident Evil fan, I have as well recently I started an English podcast about gaming as well, and I have an extensive review, my point of view on Resident Evil Requiem, the last game in the franchise. So I know very well. I started to play those games in 1996 when I was like 9-10 years old. It was a very bad parenting decision from my parents then. I know that, but still I love those games. I love Resident Evil as a franchise. But at the same time, as someone that loves the Resident Evil franchise, but I know what it is, as many fans know what it is. And I think that some new fans of the franchise, they're taking too seriously and they're giving too much credit to something that, narrative speaking, it's stupid. I have no way to make this easier to digest. It's very bonkers, Resident Evil, because Resident Evil as a story on the storytelling side, it was yes inspired by George Romero horror about zombies, but they're Japanese, and the Japanese, how they conceive horror, even if you check some of their horror stuff in games and in other media, it's always goes downhill or with monsters and mutation and bonkers idea and over the top idea they really love. And it's not an insult, it's just what it is, and it's good. I like it, to be honest. They go down the road of the B movie over the top kind of horror production, and Resident Evil is like that. So Resident Evil, it's very over the top. It has monsters, it has zombie Doberman, he has those, the tyrant, the monsters, the mutation, the virus, the G virus, the your grandma virus, the mold, and there are so many. The idea of the umbrella corporation, the evil pharmaceutical company. It's so, when I hear people going down the conspiracy theory stuff about some stuff, I go like, Jesus Christ, Resident Evil fucked up so many people. Because I think that many people who wrote conspiracy theories online on purpose to just see the world burns, they just take stuff from video games. I gotta be honest there, because I've seen so many people ramble on the same stuff that I've seen in video games and in Resident Evil sometimes. But anyway, it's very over the top, it's very crazy, and even the narrative itself sometimes doesn't make any sense. I mean, the first Resident Evil were very scary. Again, I was 9-10 when I played the first Resident Evil. To me, it was pure horror. I was so afraid to play those games. But anyway, I was a kid, I was a child, and it makes sense. And now as an adult, when I play the new version, they are still scary because they are built as well for a wider audience. Of course, 10-year-olds, I will never allow my son. He's almost 5, he's going to be 5 in July, but I will never take my 10 years old and put it in front of Resident Evil 2, the remake. I think that can be too much. Maybe a couple, 3-4 years later, maybe yes, but when it's 10, no. Requiem as well, because they can be scary, they can be too much for a kid. But anyway, the way Resident Evil is built, speaking of storytelling, the first Resident Evil, let's talk about the first Resident Evil, the starting going to the Spencer mansion. It's a very charming narrative, okay? It's the lore of Resident Evil is fascinating. What people sometimes they made the mistake when evaluating Resident Evil as a story, they confused the lore with the actual storytelling. So the lore of Resident Evil, the Umbrella Corporation, the different character, the intrigue, the mystery, the Arklay Mountains, all this the world building, it's so fascinating. But the way story is conveyed, it's very naive and silly and sometimes very stupid. And the first game, when you play the first game, an adaptation of Resident Evil, the first game, would be so silly because it would be just a spooky house with not much, the usual spooky house where they found out the conspiration and the monster, and it's so boring and annoying and not very interesting. Cinematically speaking, even storytelling, there is nothing there. What is interesting in the first Resident Evil is the lore. Spencer mentioned with Spencer, the fact that they build this very, how can I say this, opulent, baroque, gothic kind of mansion with those traps and those puzzles. Even the way they puzzle are in the game, they're super over the top, but it's a game and makes sense for a game, okay? But in the context of a movie, That would be super bonkers. Also because some stuff about the main character, the narrative, the way the main character are built, Jill and Chris. In the first game, it's very straightforward. Jill is so stupid in many occasions in the game. Even in the remake that they made in 2001, 2, the early 2000. They reworked the game. The game is solid, but she's very dumb. Sometimes she's very dull in some occasions. She's not that bright. The narrative, it works for a video game because, speaking of writing, you are so fascinated not just by the aesthetic, the fact that those fixed camera angles. So for whoever doesn't speak video game language and doesn't know what I'm talking about, back then they decided to use those fixed camera angles. So you move the character around and you have maybe you are framed in a way. You enter in a room and the way you are framed is from a window outside in the dark from bushes, and you see the character walking, and it's all built in a way to convey the idea, the kind of something that gets under your skin, to convey the idea like that someone is watching you. And so the situation is spooky, but the way they frame with the fixed camera angle, the way they frame the situation, it's to give you the sense that something is watching you, even if it's not actually that's the point. But the suggestion is more than enough to sell you the idea that everything is spooky. And in plus there is the very baroque and opulent house and everything else. Okay, the monsters, okay. Everything is dark and it's night, and in full the sound design, you have the wind whistling and a little bit sound and noises and stuff like that. They build up the horror, but the decision to put the fixed camera angle is a big thing. But then the storytelling is mostly based on letters. You find letters, you find document, and they explain what the Umbrella Corporation was working on, what was happening. They explain what's happening to Spencer and to the Spencer family, to the Spencer mansion. They explain those stuff. And those documents that you find and you start to read those stories, and it's part of the lore, not for the main story itself, gives you that feeling of mystery and discovering something that it makes sense in a video game. But once you start to try to translate this in a movie, you have to ditch so many parts of the lore to focus on what just happening, because it's a movie, it's a different medium. That what remains, it's not very interesting. It's not like The Last of Us. In The Last of Us, if you play the video game, or even if you haven't, I'm gonna explain it. The story is compelling per se. What you see in the cinematic, and then they adapted in the TV show, it's the story. But then there are other stories in the world of The Last of Us that they are conveyed through what it's broadly called environmental storytelling that we have also in Resident Evil. So you find you are exploring a building, a story that really hits me in The Last of Us. You explore a building, you see a corpse, you see that he has a backpack, a gun, arrow, stuff like that, and he has a letter. And this guy was there because he had a wife and a newborn kid, and he was looking for medicine, and he adventured in the city that it's very dangerous in the world of The Last of Us because there are many infected people, fungi and stuff like that. He went into this building. Unfortunately, he got bitten. He barricaded into the office, but he knew it was doomed. Once you're bitten, that's it. That's the end. So he wrote a letter saying, if someone find this, please bring this to my family. Please bring the medicine that I found, whatever. And please say goodbye to my kid. You found this. And it's very tragic, for once, because the story per se is very tragic. Second point, you are the only one who's finding this poor guy in this letter. he's a skeleton, means that he's been dead for ages. So his wife, if she's still alive somewhere, wherever she is, she just saw her husband go to look for resources, for medicine, and he never came back. And she figures he must be dead, but she doesn't have closure, assuming that she's still alive and the kid is still alive. And it's very haunting. But it's not part of the main lore or the main story. It's something that gives build up the world. There is world building. It gives you an idea of loneliness and solitude while you explore the world of The Last of Us, and you are in those ambient and stuff like that. It gives you, help you sell the idea of a world that is on its knees and civilization has collapsed, and you explore those cities that are very empty, and you see traces of what was the world before, and you have those feelings, but at the same time you have to fight the infected and stuff like that and survive and avenge whatever happened to Joel. So you have those two levels, but it's all built in game. When you go into the adaptation, they manage to adapt a couple of stories from the environmental storytelling. Like, for example, in the first series, when they go underground and they found that sort of a school for kids, and they drawn on the wall the two Fedra guy that probably were the guy protecting them from the infected. But since there is, if I remember correctly, a little blood everywhere, and at some point you find the corpses of the two guys, you figure that at some point things probably went south. Maybe some kids die or whatever, but it's very sad. And they adapted this in the story, in the TV show, and it's kind of impacting. It's not as impacting as in the video game, where you have the time to explore, see, and absorb. There are two different levels, but it's such a good story that it makes sense to bring it into the TV show, because it helps selling the word and giving idea of what is The Last of Us and stuff like that. But in Resident Evil, so many things are so stupid and bonkers that, for the love of God, don't pick them to make a movie. For example, one of the things that made me laugh the most reading some documentation in Resident Evil 2, in the remake, where they had occasion to kind of revamp the narrative. And to be honest, to be fair, Resident Evil 2 remake, I think it's one of the few Resident Evil that actually hold up in general. There are a couple of stuff that are very bonkers, like the way Ada Wong disappear in that way that you go like, she's dead, 100% sure, nobody can survive that fall. I mean, she's not Spider-Man, she can survive that fall, but she survives. You go like, okay, come on. But anyway, it's completely bonkers. That's the only thing. Everything else, even everything that happened in the Kendo store, Leon and the Martin is the policeman that you help at the beginning of Resident Evil 2. The whole thing, it's built way better than in the past, and it makes sense. It would be something okay to adapt in a movie. It's a story that kind of makes sense. But in general, Resident Evil, I remember this. I mean, I found this piece of paper where they tell what they're working on. The T virus, G virus, I don't remember what is the virus in Resident Evil 2. I think it's the T virus. And they go like, this is gonna be the next step in the human evolution. And they're talking about those tyrants that they're basically producing. And then they describe how the tyrant is. It basically is an idiot that doesn't have... He basically moves because he wants to kill, feed, and if there is someone with his same kind of genetics, sort of protect his species and sort of reproduce and protect his species. So it's like an animal. So you're making a big guy very dangerous, very violent, that is just going to do the same thing that a regular animal does, and he has no trait of the humankind and the human species. So elevated brain function, the idea of creating an evolved society, make math, science, languages. He has nothing. He's just a beast. And you go like, you're supposed to be a scientist. You just put on paper something that if you read back again, it's so fucking stupid. And Resident Evil is full of those stuff. Even the lore doesn't make any sense sometimes. Even for example, in Requiem, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there are moments that are so dull and stupid. Like, for example, even this is the beginning, was in the trailer, there is no spoiler. But basically, there is new character called Grace. She works in the FBI as basically an analyst. She's not like Clarice in The Silence of the Lambs. She's not an agent that goes on the field. She's an analyst. She knows nothing about action, stuff like that. And her boss call her in and goes like, you gotta go to this hotel to investigate those stuff. And she doesn't want to go there because it's where she has seen with her own eyes, in a very traumatic event, her mother being slaughtered like a pig in the most violent way possible. And her boss says, you gotta go there. She goes like, because she talks like that, because she can't look people in the eye. She's so traumatized. And she goes like, and he goes like, oh, shut up, Grace. You gotta go. Has been time passed. You gotta get over it. And go like, oh, for fuck's sake. You're one of the boss. I understand tough love. I understand the idea of trying to inspire your agent, but this is wrong. This is wrong. And even moving on, no spoilers, but the way the game ends, even Resident Evil 2, the remake, the way it ends, the little girl, without spoilers, for just me and the people who played the game, what happened to the little girl, to her family, and how she's laughing and cheering at the end of the game with the sun rising and an atomic explosion behind them. Doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. And Resident Evil is full of those stupid things. In Requiem, there is a gigantic spider in Raccoon City, and how this gigantic spider hasn't left Raccoon City and destroyed the rest of the world, it's beyond my understanding. So it's not about suspension of disbelief. There are stuff in the Resident Evil saga that if you want to make an effort to actually make an adaptation, if it was up to me, I will make, like in the remake, I will start from the saga from Resident Evil 2, and then I'll probably make a prequel about the first game. But you gotta rewrite the whole thing, because it's easy to fucked up, because there is not much of a story to tell. It's very naive, it's very silly, and probably the best course of action, like in Welcome to Raccoon City, there was a horrible movie, the story didn't work out, that they transformed Leon into an idiot, and I don't understand why. But anyway, the guy who wrote and directed the movie are the worst. I'm sorry, that movie is fucked up. But anyway, the idea of telling multiple stories at the same time kind of makes sense, but because there is not much story in Resident Evil 2, there is not much story in Resident Evil 1. If you squish them together, but you gotta do it properly, will make a little bit more sense. But you gotta build that up properly and work better with how you manage time and time jumps and those kind of stuff. But anyway, the thing is that even Resident Evil 4, even the remake, the story is so bonkers. He's protecting the girl, and then he see a menacing castle, and he has to wait for help. And he goes like, oh, let's go up there. And you go like, nope, Where are you going? Your instinct as a train agent should tell you that that is not a safe place because it's the most ominous place you have in the radius of 200 kilometers. Don't go there. Please, for the love of God. But he goes there anyway, and of course, the worst happens. It's that level of writing. And I think that if you love Resident Evil, that it's not Silent Hill. Silent Hill will be easier to adapt, but anyway, somebody fucked up big time anyway. We talked about that in the past. Silent Hill has a writing that it's easier to adapt for cinema because we have David Lynch and surreal kind of horror. We have a psychological horror. It makes more sense. It talks a little bit more directly to an adaptation. Same thing goes for Alan Wake. Alan Wake, the first and the second. For years they talk about an adaptation of the first game, and I hope they do, because I think it would be fantastic, because I think that the way Sam Lake and the team wrote the story, it's perfect to be translated into a movie or a TV show. I think it will work better as a TV show. But anyway, those games have the way the narrative is written, the lore, the story, the attention that they give to the story is so well crafted that it makes sense to make a direct adaptation. Alan Wake makes sense to make a direct adaptation because as much as The Last of Us, there is the storytelling is so much potential and is so well written and built as a story per se, and that it has so much material that you can make an adaptation. Resident Evil, it's most of the time an excuse to make an horror game, and it's more about the gameplay than the story. The story, it's basically a tool to give you a couple of compelling characters, but actually in the history of Resident Evil, the most compelling character, as Resident Evil Requiem proves, it's Leon Kennedy. Everyone else is like there. I mean, the other character that people love, it's, I don't know, Chris Redfield. And what is his characteristic? He has big biceps. He's very masculine. That's it. That's why people love that character. And they love Ada Wong. But Ada Wong makes sense because he's that sort of femme fatale, like Faye Valentine. Those kind of characters that are very charming, but a double-edged sword, because the sword, they kind of they can betray you, they can trick you, and are very interesting. You can work a lot with those characters, but she's an exception. Everyone else in Resident Evil, it's kind of bland, boring, basically two-dimensional character for a B-movie horror story. And so the fact that Cregger has decided to take the best part of the Resident Evil saga, so the lore, the monsters, the idea of their umbrella, the outbreak, because if the movie is going to be a sort of Mad Max with Resident Evil, so horror, not with the cars, don't imagine a guy driving a cars, Mad Max in the sense that it's a 90-minute non-stop survival experience, I think it can be very good, because the world of Resident Evil, it's fascinating for the world. The Arklay Mountains, the Spencer Mansion, Raccoon City, the idea of the monster, the idea of the viruses, it can be very good. It can be very interesting. And I think it could be something that will work if you use the lore instead of the specific character and situation. Because as soon as you adapt, for example, the police station, I mean, if I was a director in charge of adapting Resident Evil 2, I would have fun with building the police station, the Raccoon City police station, because it's such an amazing place. Even like Spencer mentioned, they are so iconic because they are so peculiar and so fascinating. the idea of this police station that has statue and marble pavement, and when you step into it there is an echo because it's so powerful the way it's designed, because it was a museum that it was basically the museum closed down and they make the police station. It's a very charming idea. It's a very charming solution, even if it's bonkers for when you actually see, because it just made like this is the solution that they came up just to justify the fact that they have weird puzzle inside the police station. And again, it's a decision for the gameplay, not for the sake of the storytelling. But at the end of the day, works on as an iconographic kind of solution. And I will enjoy to adapt that. But then if you check what happened in Resident Evil, you have the sewage, you have the laboratory, the story gets the orphanage, the story gets crazy pretty fast. And I think that exists a world where you can adapt to Resident Evil 2, but you gotta work a lot, because otherwise it can be very bonkers and stupid. And plus, I think you gotta stick to the source material. And what I mean is that he has to take place in 1998. You can't do Resident Evil now. I think that will be very boring. I think that move back in time and stick with the original timeline for Resident Evil, it's a good thing, because it gives a vibes and makes sense that the whole thing is like that. And I believe at some point maybe there's going to be a nice adaptation, but I don't know. I still think that the narrative is too bonkers, because what happened in the sewage? Speaking of narrative, there is nothing much going on there. And so the danger is that everything is like in the game on a visual level and following the structure of the story that they put in the game. But then, speaking of just taking in the story for what it is, it's not that fascinating. It's fascinating because you have the gameplay and because you are inside the event as a player. But as soon as you're supposed to be on the edge of your seat, because it's an horror movie and you gotta enjoy the mood and the gore and the violence and the suggestion that the horror movie can give you. I think in the second that you are in that space, it's very difficult to adapt Resident Evil, because there is nothing much there. So those are my thoughts about Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, and the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm gonna be back with some of the stuff because CinemaCon, everything is happening. But anyway, I'm gonna be back with more thoughts about movies. This episode was just about news and discussing cinema and writing and storytelling. If you like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, vote the podcast, leave a comment if you want to talk about anything, if you want to share thoughts, if you want to ask questions, whatever. I'm here for that as well. So enjoy your day. I hope you had a nice time at the gym. Train good. Have some protein. You have a 3 hours window to take your protein. Don't rush it. Don't do that disgusting thing that I see sometimes in the gym with people having their protein lunch, for the love of God, or dinner before showering sometimes in the locker room. For the love of God, don't do that. It's disgusting. It's terrible. Have a shower. Enjoy life, for crying out loud. Have a shower. Enjoy your time after the shower. Take your bike, have a nice stroll, back home, step to a supermarket, buy your meal, plan your meal, whatever you're doing, then go home, chill, have your food. Don't rush it. Don't eat in the locker room, for the love of God. Anyway, after this moment of craziness, thank you so much. Hear you, see you, or whatever next time. Bye.